talking to you. That insanely powerful to go at all times. If you don't like what I'm saying, then I'm not talking to you.
Welcome to the Think Marketing Podcast, the #1 podcast for growing and scaling your business with online video. I'm Heather Torres.
And I'm Sean Cannell, and we're from Think Media. And if this is your first time listening, welcome.
This show is dedicated to helping you learn how to get your content noticed and the latest money-making strategies working right now online. So whether you want to grow your YouTube channel or you want to maximize video across all of social media, this podcast is for you. Well, hello, podcast listeners. I wanted to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Grow with Video Live. This is our 3-day annual conference that this year is coming right to your living room. We have tickets on sale for as little as $97 to attend this 3-day virtual experience with some amazing speakers. It'll be jam-packed of strategy, of community and networking, and so much more. You can get all the details at growwithvideolive.com. And today's episode I'm fired up for because Sean is interviewing Manny Arango. He's a world-class communicator, and I am so excited because communication is so key when it comes to creating YouTube videos and getting your message out there. And in today's episode, Manny really breaks down what are the mistakes that communicators are making right now and what are the tips that you can actually apply to your next YouTube video or live stream that'll help you dominate in communication. Lean in because right now we're heading into today's episode.
Well, hey, welcome back to the Think Marketing Podcast. I'm so fired up because today I'm here with a friend of mine, Manny Arango. He's going to be helping us level up as communicators. Look, there's never been a more important time to be a powerful communicator, storyteller on social media, in videos, to build your business and make a great impact. And the thing is, Manny, if you're just meeting him right now, is one of the most in-demand speakers in America and around the world. He has a dynamic, passionate, hilarious communication style that allows him to make a profound impact when speaking at colleges, camps, churches. He's the co-founder of ARMA Courses, online seminary level Bible content and theology courses. He has 2 YouTube channels, Manny Arango, and a lifestyle channel with his wife, Tia, called The Arangos, that's documenting their journey through marriage, infertility, miscarriage, that will impact the lives of every audience that hears you. And he's going to be breaking down some of his most powerful tips in this session today. Manny, how's it going, man? Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Dude, first of all, I'm stealing that bio, all right? Because that is epic. Dude, thank you for having me on the podcast. Thank you for sharing your platform with me. Man, I'm doing amazing. It is sunny in North Carolina, and super, super excited to get into to help everybody who's listening, watching, to become a better communicator, because everyone has something to say, and we've got to start to package it a little bit better so that people want to hear what we have to say. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, I love that, man. And so let's just dive right into it. But for those that are just getting to meet you, what is your background and journey? I mean, just so people know about kind of our relationship. We actually spoke at a youth conference. I was there just talking a little bit about kind of like YouTube secrets and talking to church communicators. And that's when we first met. And then you came to our church in Las Vegas, spoke. And I think that was the first time I heard you like in entirety and was just like, wow, I am a connoisseur, as I'm sure you are as well, growing up in the church, of some of the great communicators. And the church world, I believe, has some of the best communicators. But even Absolutely. But even in personal development, going to different seminars, going to different entrepreneur and leadership conferences, there's some amazing communicators in that space as well. And with no flattery intended, you are just at the top of your game when it comes to clarity, when it comes to passion, when it comes to content, when it comes to all of the most important things of communication, making the connection with the audience, delivery, the details, intonality. I mean, really massive respect. And it's also been cool to see just your value system, who you are as a person. So what's been your background, though, and journey to becoming a great communicator? For those listening, of course, this is the skill. I mean, it's not about YouTube. YouTube. It's not about Instagram. It's about communication. These are the middlemen. They're the vehicles. But how did you, kind of walking in your calling, walking in your skill set, having sharpened the saw, what's the kind of the background and journey to where you are today and a little bit of your story?
Dude, so I got an early start, which I think is massive, right? You get a head start. If anyone's read, Malcolm Gladwell, you get thousands of hours of practice by starting early. I started preaching when I was 12 years old. And it's just because I had a youth pastor who took my desire to communicate really, really seriously. And so, man, the first time, I told him, I feel called to preach. I remember him saying okay, yeah, meet me at my house Thursday night, we'll go, you'll preach. And so, dude, I got my best sneakers on. I'm super excited. I'm thinking he's going to take me to a youth conference. Man, we went to a juvenile detention center, and he was like, all right, you're going to communicate. And so I remember speaking to this group of 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds who were older than me, but guys that were in lockup, right? And so maybe a couple of months go by, and I do the same thing, okay, cool, this has been great. I'm enjoying the Thursday night, lockup, Bible study vibe, but I want to adult, And I'm yeah, meet me in my church, meet me in my house Sunday morning. And so again, man, I'm Eastered out, man. I'm thinking, yeah, my pastor's going to bring me to a church. It's going to be awesome. He brought me to a nursing home facility and was okay, yeah, here you go. And no lie, those lessons taught me, I may want to communicate to this audience, but I'm never going to communicate to this audience if I don't, Karate Kid, wax on, wax off, which I think taught me early on, there's always an audience. There's always someone who's down to listen to you, hear you, and you can't romanticize the journey of becoming an incredible communicator. And so, dude, for years, I did nursing home ministry on the first Sunday of the month, dude, until I was in college. So from 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So by the time I spoke to my youth group for the first time, by the time I spoke in church, oh man, the kid on the front row who lives in a cul-de-sac who had an attitude was not bothering me. You don't faze me, man. I was just in lockup, at a juvenile detention facility, 3 weeks ago. So I think that there are always audiences to communicate to. And I think that the journey to become a great communicator is reaching into who are you? I think a lot of times we don't have things powerful to say because we really don't know who we are. I think finding your message is all about finding who you are as a person, knowing what makes you angry, knowing what makes you upset. So I won't answer too many questions at a time. I'll stick to the first question you asked me, but that's a little bit of my journey in figuring out, I felt fully alive when I was talking to people, fully alive when I was communicating to people. And so I stuck with it.
And so how many years now have you been really communicating seriously?
So I got ordained at 20 years old. My church ordained me. I started doing middle school ministry, youth ministry, probably around 19, 20. And I'm 33 now. So yeah, over a decade of man, this is what I do. I am a communicator. I'm just gonna own it. This is exactly what I do. But dude, from 12 to 17 is all of this raw practice and so that you're not nervous. I think part of the hurdle for communicators is not being nervous anymore. That jittery, anxious feeling, that imposter syndrome. I just think I got over that sooner because I started sooner. And that's really the real advantage is confidence, not even content, but just straight confidence. And so the confidence journey started at 12, 13. The content, the crafting of the communicating started at 19, 20. And yeah, it's been a fun journey.
And then how many maybe units, whether that's sermons, events, but now maybe YouTube videos, maybe videos that have been inside of a course, webinars, like, I don't know, you might just have to estimate it, but like how many at-bats do you think you've had now?
Oh man. Oh, dude, it's got to be thousands. It's thousands. It's
Yeah.
live audiences alone is in the thousands. Yeah, live audiences alone. Because so one of the reasons that my pastor was adamant about me even becoming a youth pastor is because, he was like, look, you're going to speak 52 times a year, guaranteed. Guaranteed, you're going to get 52 at-bats every single year. And so, again, even for YouTube, it's like if you commit like that, I'm going to put out one video a week, you're going to get 52 at-bats a year minimum. So that's not adding in, all the extra stuff that happens. And so, man, in a year, just 1 year, you could get 100 at-bats, right? And so you've got to look at every year that way. Like, I get 100 at-bats this year, which, man, I would say, like, I was really, really good, like, speaking to people that I knew. But then somewhere around 2017, 2016, I started getting invited to speak to strangers, which is a different ball game, right? Like, it's one thing to win a home game. It's another thing to, like, win away, right?
Yeah,
to connect with someone that you don't know immediately. And I would say it probably took me, like 18 months of, like, just like a learning curve of, like, okay, here is what you do in the first 5 minutes of talking to people who do not know you. Like, here's how you win instant credibility. Here's how, an urban black male can connect with suburban white females, right? Like, this is how, because I started to realize, dude, and I learned a lot of communication just from Pixar. Like, I think the greatest storytellers of our generation is Pixar, right? And when you watch a Pixar movie, like, and I say this to everyone, whether you're watching a sermon, a comedian, a Pixar movie, whatever you're consuming, instead of eating that meal, start to try to pick up on the ingredients that are in that meal. So when you watch Pixar, you realize, man, like, there are some specific things that are just related to animated film, but they have a way of making me care about a character that I would not have cared about because there are central themes that connect every human together. And so the goal is to figure out, how does a black urban male from Boston connect with anyone? Because although we may be different, we're human. And what are those core human themes? So I had to realize early on, if I'm traveling to speak or if I'm putting something on YouTube, I have to figure out what are the human things that every single person cares about. And now I've got to talk about those things, right? I'm not speaking just about the things I'm passionate about. I'm talking about the things that I know you have a need for or you're concerned about. And everyone may not be battling through infertility, but everyone is battling through uncertainty. So how do I not just talk about infertility, but talk about the uncertainty and fear? And so now I can take my specific story and I can relate to anyone, because instead of being stuck on the specificities, I've like hunkered down on these wells that man connect every single human. And so again, different at bats, like, but again, YouTube is a different, version. Speaking to people that you don't know, speaking to people that you do know. And man, whatever the learning curve is, dude, at this point, it's thousands, man. It's a lot of at-bats. It's a lot of at-bats.
Well, I love that you shared that, and I'm excited to get into some tactics and practical things. And in just a second, I want you to share actually what we should do in the first 5 minutes to connect with people that don't really know us yet. But the reason I wanted you to kind of go detailed on your past is it's probably not the most encouraging truth about becoming a great communicator, but it's the fact that one of the best ways to level up is exactly what you said. Do it a lot. Put out a lot of bad videos before you get to your good videos.
100%.
A lot of times people see me too, even on video, and they don't realize growing up in the church, in youth ministry, doing announcements, being told to speak sermons, doing video announcements for church for years back in 2003 and 2004 were all of these moments where I was terrible, actually, right? But I was putting in the repetitions.
Yeah.
And I heard a preacher one day say that the best way to teach a preacher is to preach a preacher.
For sure.
You got to do it. You got to do it a lot. So for those listening, do that live stream, post those videos, and use your season in obscurity to prepare you for popularity. Start a live show on Facebook Live or Instagram Live where you go live once or twice a week, and maybe no one's watching. The point of the show is not influence yet. The point of the show is personal development, because that'll get you to your greatness. But Manny, tell us, I love that you mentioned that. You had to learn it's different when you're playing a home game versus an away game. And so many of us want to build our influence on video with live streaming, but we are getting in front of strangers. What have you learned about those first 5 minutes in doing a talk, but it could be a video or a live stream, of some things we could do to make a connection with somebody that doesn't know us yet?
Dude, the funny thing, right, is that I remember the first Sunday that I preached for my pastor, right? Every church loves their pastor, right? Like, that's kind of like, I don't know, top 3 reasons for why you go to that church is I enjoy the way this person communicates. So I remember the first Sunday that I preached for my pastor, and dude, less than 2 minutes in, people are already walking out, right? Because they're just like, oh, Pastor Andy's not here? Yeah, I'm out of here. Like, this isn't what I signed up for. You know, I didn't sign up for amateur night. I don't know this guy. And so it trained me to be like, okay, I've got to come out guns blazing, like, every time, because the first thing that people are wondering is, who are you? Who are you? Why are you here? And why did my parents leave me with a babysitter? Like, just, we don't know who you are. And so I started going, okay, instead of walking up on stage and giving like an introduction to who I am, or like even getting into the content, I'm like, I create 3 to 4 minute like mini sermons, and that is how I start. So I literally take the stage and just start communicating. And I mean, like, it can be whiplash for people, but it's like, no, we're going straight in. And it's typically like an anecdote or a story or something that like immediately connects people. And because I'm typically communicating in church, it's typically centered around the topic of worship, because that's, or worship and praise and singing, because that's typically what we just finished doing. So I get up on stage and I immediately exhort and give an admonition of giving light to what we just did. Then once everyone's like, oh, okay, we're in good hands. All right, we feel safe with this guy. Then I introduce myself. Then I say where I'm from. Then I throw up a picture of me and my wife. Then I say, hey, today, before you leave, I always love to make a promise. I think making a promise, number one, keeps the speaker accountable, and it lets the person know this is what I'm like. Before I leave, like Pastor Manny said, I'm going to learn X, or I'm going to kill fear, or I'm going to get, confident, whatever it is. So I, let's like come out of the with, man, before I buy a meal, I want a sample. So I'm like Chinese food restaurant at the mall, all right? Like, I'm like, I've got samples like on toothpicks and I'm giving them out. And that's the first thing I do on stage. The second thing I do is get people acclimated with me. Hey, my name's Manny. This is my, throw up a picture of my wife, just because that creates relatability. And then I make a promise. Because everyone comes into an event with their agenda. They are hoping that you scratch their itch. But that promise helps everyone to know, no, I'm not really here to scratch your itch. I'm here to scratch this itch. And actually, the itch that I'm talking about is the most important thing. And if you as a communicator don't establish what the most important thing is, people are going through life, man. So they are hoping you talk about the divorce they're going through. And they're hoping that you talk about their loved one who may be in the hospital or whatever. And you as a communicator have to establish, no, actually, I'm going to talk about faith, because faith will help you with that loved one, with that divorce, with whatever. These are the 3 things. You want to give people a bite size, and I mean bite size, like 3 minutes. You don't want to eat up all your time. 2, 3, 4 minutes of like, man, if they saw a clip of you, like on Instagram, that is what you would be saying. Something that makes everyone go, oh, wow, we're in good hands. Number 2, you want to then introduce yourself. You want to create human connection. Throw up a picture of your kids, throw up a picture of your wife. That actually really does help. It's not just nice. And then number 3, you want to make a promise. You want to say, hey, today, this is what we're going to talk about, because it centers everyone and it makes everyone realize that what you're about to tell them is more important than whatever concerns they have. So those are the 3 things, and you want to do it every time in that order, because if you mess up that order, I promise you, that's the right order. I've done enough at-bats to know that's the right order.
Well, that's so amazing too, because one of the things we've been teaching on YouTube is lead with content. And it's actually called, my friend Matt Geelan calls it the kick, because at the beginning of a YouTube video, you want to give a kick of dopamine that whatever the title promised, they get instantly. So as soon as they click on it, you're not like, hey, I'm Sean and this is what I've done, and you're taking, but you come right in and actually deliver content right away, shockingly fast. And I love the idea of coming out guns blazing, like 0 to 100 real quick, deliver that value, and then it circles back. Like, but hey, we're going to get into the rest of the points, but if we're just meeting, you maybe introduce yourself, build that rapport, kind of show your values by introducing your family. And when we think about like even structuring webinars, that's just such a powerful truth of letting that person know that it's not going to take us a while to ramp up into this thing. And I got all this background of your story before I really get value first. And if you want to get that YouTube engagement, if you deliver that value right up front and just like come at them so fast that they got to watch the first 60 seconds because they can barely take a breath of getting value, then that'll even translate to social media. Yeah.
100%. I love that. And I think social media has helped us, right? Like Twitter has helped us have to say what we want to say in a short amount of time, right? Instagram, really, even though you can put an IGTV on Instagram, people are going to watch that first minute. And so it's helped. I think it's helped everyone to go, how do I give people fire in 60 seconds, right? And that is an indispensable skill, whether it's live, recorded, YouTube. You want to give people that first 60 seconds, you want it to be fire.
So strong. Well, Manny, let's talk about some mistakes. So especially as it pertains to, you're seeing a lot of stuff happening online right now. We've all had our lives disrupted with the pandemic. And so you've been doing more online communicating. Plus you are a content creator with a couple different YouTube channels. Of course, there's universal communication mistakes, and I'd love to hear those. But from those that maybe you even turn on one of their YouTube videos or something, what are a couple of the biggest mistakes that people are making that they could fix to have more power and more impact when they're communicating?
Number 1, I think that we are living in a time where people are like afraid to be controversial, which is like, I'm like, no, that is controversial, not controversial for controversial sake. I say it this way, that communication should be provocative. It should always be provocative. It doesn't need to be controversial, but it should be provocative. And I should know enough about my audience to know what is going to provoke thought, what is going to provoke response, and what is going to provoke loyalty to my brand. And so I always say it this way. You know that something is provocative if it needs to be proven. Okay, so if I get up in front of let's say it's a church, and I say, hey, everyone, Jesus rose from the grave. It's like, awesome. Like everyone you're talking to already believes this. This is not a provocative statement, right? But if I can actually then couple that with something that needs to be proven, and that's really, really powerful. Provocative communication is powerful because it's going to resonate with the people it needs to resonate with. And it's not going to resonate with the people it doesn't need to resonate with. And so I think that sometimes we're so vanilla, like bland, that everyone's just kind of like, yeah, this sounds like everyone else. This blends in. Like this is cliche. Like this is not authentic. And I think being authentic is resonating with you. You cannot resonate with a tribe until you figure out like, what are my unique values? And my unique values are not going to be liked by everyone. And that is all right. Great communicators have just as many haters as they have people who love them, like as fans. And so you've got to know what are the core beliefs that I have, and who am I talking to? I think, Sean, that's the number one thing that I've learned is like, someone said this to me when I was young. They said, an average communicator asks, how much time do I have to talk? An average communicator asks, is it a formal event or an informal event? A great communicator, the only thing they want to know is who am I talking to? Because that dictates everything. Who am I talking to? And what are their fears? What are their concerns? What are their problems? A lot of times in the gospel, Sean, it says this, that Jesus, knowing what they were thinking, said, right? Jesus, knowing what they were thinking, then preached or then began to teach. And I just think a lot of times we are trying to give people solutions without knowing what their problems are or without presenting a problem to them first. And good communication solves problems. And sometimes the solution to that problem is going to provoke. Thought is going to be provocative. And so dude, when I was younger, I used to just sit down with the Bible like, 66 books. I mean, well, I don't know what to talk about. Should I talk about Ezra or John, or I don't know. But then you start counseling people and you realize from a pastoral perspective, oh, people are anxious. Oh, let's talk about that. Oh, people are depressed. Oh, let's talk about that. Right. So the patient is the one that gives the doctor is the one that drives what prescription I'm going to write. I think sometimes I'll click on a video or I'll listen to someone talk and I just go, you're just writing prescriptions. You have no idea what the patient needs. Who told you they wanted to hear this? And I get it. You think that this is the most interesting thing in the world, but you've got to convince me that I have a problem before you start telling me about this thing that you're just interested in. So I think if you can turn your interests into a solution, then that means that you can speak to people's problems and always have a voice. That is like number one. Do you know what people's problems are, and are you provocative? Is just basic, really, really basic. Like anyone listening, anyone watching, you can implement that today. You can do simple research and figure out what are people scared of? What are they concerned about? What is your audience that you're talking to? Like, are they 35-year-olds who have small children? Like, the more you can conceptualize that audience, the more you can start walking in their shoes. And now, like Jesus, you can say, Jesus, knowing what they were thinking, said. And it's like, we've got so much technology at our disposal, we should know what our audience is thinking. If Target knows what I want, if every store, man, I can't have a conversation without them getting an Instagram ad that gives me 5, products that they think can fix the problem that they think I have. So we have so much at our disposal. I need to know what's happening in the minds of my audience before I ever talk to them. And that's just the homework that I do as a communicator.
That's powerful. And that actually reminds me of a video that you did that I love. And you just shared one of the principles of great communication that you learned and noticed from President Donald Trump. And the video, of course, a little bit controversial, a polarizing figure for sure. But you mentioned, provocative communication has been one of the things that he's okay with people disliking him. He doesn't have a fear of other people's opinions, clearly. But with what we saw with the election results and what we saw with even how he can mobilize people by being provocative, that's one of the things. What were the other powerful communication traits that we can learn, love him or hate him, that we can learn from his powerful communication that we can put into our videos, our live streams, and our content?
Yeah, number one, I think the most powerful thing, there's actually two. The first one is, most of the time, like let's say President Trump says something and it bothers me or it bothers you. or bothers anyone, you can then insert my next statement. He's not talking to you. Okay, so if he says something that bothers you, bugs you, rubs you the wrong way, rest assured, he's not talking to you. So President Trump is speaking to his base all the time. He's speaking to his tribe, and he's speaking their language. He's speaking their rhetoric. And so that insanely powerful to go at all times. If you don't like what I'm saying, then I'm not talking to you. Like, and for that to just be that alone, it requires confidence. But again, it requires me to know what's happening in the lives and the minds of the people who do like what I'm saying, who my content resonates with them. I don't need to waste a lot of time fighting with people who don't agree with me. I just provide content to people whose my voice resonates with. So that's number one. Number two, President Trump is amazing at connecting with people who he has nothing in common with. He's phenomenal at this. He's incredible. Like, let's think about this. This is a wealthy individual who, for the most part, non-wealthy individuals love the guy. And I'm always flabbergasted. Like, here we have someone who built their brand on luxury, wealth, affluence, and whose followers don't always even look like him. And so I go, got it. Again, like Pixar, there are core human themes. I can be opposite of you and still connect with you. We can be in the same tribe because we share the same fears, concerns, core drivers. So the first thing is, I need to know who I'm talking to at all times. And I need to be aware that if people do not like what I'm saying, I'm not talking to them. That's it. And it's okay. There are enough people who are into whatever I'm talking about following. That's it. I don't have to win over or waste energy trying to convince people who don't mean like it's a time. Second of all, just because someone isn't like me doesn't mean they won't like me, right? Just because someone is not like me, doesn't share my background or my upbringing, does not mean that what I have to say won't resonate with them. I have to figure out the difference between the people who do not like me and the people who just are not like me. That those are different types. And sometimes they can look alike. I may assume that because I am not like a person that they won't like me. But there may be people who have come from the same neighborhood as me, come from the same socioeconomic background as me, are the same gender or race as me, and they may not like me. So I assume just because we are alike that you will like me. I have to go, no. I'm speaking to my tribe. And the people in my tribe are not the people who are like me. They are the people who like and resonate with the things that I have to say. And that happens at a value level. That happens at a messaging level. That has nothing to do with whether you identify with my gender or race or whatever. My brand has to communicate values. It has to communicate something deeper than just the outward trappings of what would attract an individual. So I think Donald Trump is phenomenal at those two things. He knows who he's talking to, and he's able to relate to who he's talking to, even though he may not have things in common. He understands the common person, understands their fears, and talks to them. Brilliant. Whether you like the man, don't like the man, it's brilliant, and every communicator should follow suit and learn how to do those exact things.
Man, so many powerful truths. And I love what you are describing there as well, that we really need to get in touch with our values. We need to get in touch with what we stand for. We really need to be clear on our message, where it's coming from, and overcome the fear of being misunderstood. I think a lot of us with social media, the allure is, hey, this is a global audience. I've got global reach. I can reach everybody. I'm trying to talk to everybody. I'm trying to communicate to everybody. But what you have illustrated here for us is that no, not only is that impossible, and not only no matter who you are, is everybody gonna like you or dislike you or not even care or pay attention, that when we are willing to speak to our tribe, when we're willing to speak to our base, or when we're willing, before we have a base, to speak to values and common common traits that we share as humanity, just like Pixar does, we can start making powerful connections and growing our following, starting to make a movement, and one by one starting to impact people with our communication. Manny, this stuff's been...
There are people who don't like Beyonce, all right? So, look, if there are people who don't like Beyonce, you're not going to convince everyone to like you. That's just not the goal. And I think that's a hindrance, like a desire to be liked. I think the image that we have of someone on stage, we assume that person on stage is liked. But for everybody in the room clapping, there are protesters outside who don't like whatever that person is saying. And so you got to be down with it all. It has to, the clapping in the room doesn't affirm what I'm saying. Actually, the hate actually tells me that what I'm saying is probably striking a nerve and is probably going to be remembered. So we've got to get over our love of being liked and affirmed. That has to come from within. My acceptance of myself comes from within. It doesn't come from the people who are clapping, and it doesn't come from the audience. And I have to bring that. And I think we all can tell the difference between people who are living and dying by popularity and people who just bring their own source of validation to the table, and rejection doesn't bother them, right? A YouTube video getting 10 views doesn't bother them. They just show up the next week and do it again, because although they want this to be helpful for people, this is not a source of validation. This is me just getting at bats. And I think that's the part of the iceberg that is invisible, but it really, really matters.
So powerful. Manny Arango, we have a bonus session with Manny in our Inner Circle program for those in the community that want to listen to that. Manny, there's so much stuff that you shared here. We got to have you back on, because I know your depth in communication is boundless, right? We were talking there. You said, man, I could talk about this stuff literally for days. And it's true, because you've got the content, you've got the experience. Mastery is in the details. It's in the distinctions, and it's all these little pieces. So I know you've added so much value to our community today, and thank you. For those that want to follow up with you and connect with you, what's the best way to get in touch? Of course, in the show notes in the YouTube description, we'll have all of Manny's stuff. But what's your, what kind of projects are you working on, and what's the best place for people to follow you and connect with you?
Dude, the biggest two projects I'm working on right now, Speakeasy and Arma, and you can find all that info just on my own Instagram. My Instagram handle is Manny Arango. I respond to every direct message. And so a friend of mine was making fun of me like last week and was like, yeah, I was going to text you, but I figured I would just DM you. And so I respond to every DM. I'm on Instagram all the time. So connect with me on Instagram. It's the easiest way to connect. And I'm at Manny Arango on Instagram. So anything that I'm up to is the meal that I'm eating, where I'm going, where I'm hanging out, all that stuff is always on Instagram. So, and shoot me a DM, and I'd love to help you on your journey to become a communicator or find theological truth with Arma. Those are my big two passions at the moment. So.
Try crunchy, melty Reese toasted chips. iPhone 16e has a durable design and ceramic shield because the average person drops their phone 208 times a year. Make that 209 once they see the price. iPhone 16e, latest iPhone, greatest price.
With Arma, those are my big two passions at the moment. So.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's interview with Sean and Manny. And wow, I am ready to level up my communication style as well. And one thing that I really took from what Manny said was way back in the beginning when he said, don't despise the small beginnings. He started so young and he started in groups where you wouldn't most likely think that that's where your first big breaks would happen. So if you're in a space right now where you're trying to level up your communication, just remember that let's practice in obscurity before popularity. Did you know that over on iTunes, you can subscribe, rate, and review the podcast? It means so much to us here at Think because it allows us to see what you think of this podcast, but it also lets Apple know that they should show it to more people. And remember, you can listen to this podcast on any of the audio spaces as well as on YouTube, so make sure you subscribe there too. All right, today's review actually comes from Podcast Critique. They said, I love this podcast because it gets me more motivated to get up every day and create. I run a YouTube channel inspired by Think Media. I love you guys so much, and same with this podcast. God bless. Well, Podcast Critique, thank you so much for leaving that review. And if you've not left a review yet, what are you waiting for? Get over to your Apple iTunes, leave that review, and let us know what other episodes you would like to see here in the future for the Think Marketing podcast. Well, it's time to lean in. It's time to take action. You've now got the tips, you've got the practical tips to move your communication style forward. So let me ask you, when's your next video? When can you take what you've learned here and apply it? That's the action takers we love here at Think. And remember, if you're part of Inner Circle, you have the part 2 of Manny's interview waiting for you inside of your members area. And if you've not bought your ticket yet to Grow with Video Live, right now, that is your next step. Head over to growwithvideolive.com, claim your $97 ticket or our other 2 ticket options, and we will see you at our annual conference this year. I'll see you next time in the next podcast. Bye. Over this last year, the world has changed like never before as we pivot more into remote learning and remote working and an increase in e-commerce. There has never been a better opportunity for you to go full-time on YouTube. My name is Heather Torres, and you're listening to the Think Marketing Podcast. And if you're new here, we release an episode every single Tuesday, and I would encourage you to subscribe wherever you're consuming this content. And I'm excited because we're going to be getting into a 3-part series over the next few weeks here on the podcast. Sean's going to be breaking down the 7 lessons that he learned from going from flipping burgers, well, actually serving burgers, to becoming a full-timer on YouTube. This is possible. This is possible for you right now. And I'm excited because over these next 3 episodes, we're going to be breaking down each one of those steps. And throughout that time, you're going to be learning everything from how do you actually go full-time? Like, it sounds great, but what are the practical steps to doing that? Things like the proximity principle, and what does that mean for you to growing faster into going full-time? And how do you financially do it? What does it actually mean to go full-time, and how do you get there faster? We're going to be breaking down the 7 steps over the next few weeks. And today, we're jumping into step number 1, which is getting started, and step number 2, which is skilling up. Now, Sean's going to share with you those first 2, and then I'm going to come back on. We're going to recap, and I've got some extra tips for you at the end.
Step 1 is start, right? And there's actually another part to it, but ultimately you got to just start. Now, maybe that seems basic, but I know a lot of us, even some in the Think media community, that maybe we're still hesitating because of fear. Maybe we think we don't have the right gear yet or any of those things. Look, you got to punch fear in the face, punch perfectionism in the face, and press record. But a better way to start is not just start, but start with the end in mind. And so if you want to go full time, it's good to have a vision for where you want to go. And look, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. So when it comes to Think Media, I think it's important to mention that I started video in 2002 or 3. I started volunteering at my local church, and using video cameras to make these video announcements Wednesday night at youth group. And guess what? They were terrible. Like, your first videos are going to be your worst videos. But when you look at my ultimate journey, that was a massive advantage, right? Because I was learning cameras, I was learning editing, I was terrible at it. And I had time years before YouTube even started to really skill up and level up. But ultimately, you got to just start. You got to learn this stuff. You got to lean in. You got to push past perfectionism and just start. But I also think that starting with the end in mind is important. And the first Think Media video that was ever posted was in 2010. Now, I didn't have a ton of clarity, but I did have a little bit of a direction. And you can see that here, that even 8-9 years ago, I posted on how to get started in video production and video editing, or video editing PC tips, how to build an HD video editing machine. What was I doing on YouTube? I was teaching out of my experience that I had up until that point. So by 2010, I now had been volunteering and doing video production. I've been on camera. I've been learning about cameras. And I started a business called Clear Vision Media, where I was doing wedding videos and I was doing video production for other people. So my YouTube channel was like an overflow of what I was doing in my life. It's kind of meta, you know, if you ever, some people like are like, Sean, you have a channel about video. It's like, well, no, video was what I started with way before even YouTube started, right? And so I realized that I had some skill in that. I had experience, I had time doing that. And so that's what I started my channel around. And in 2010, I was working in Red Robin, waiting tables. That was my main way to pay the bills. I bootstrapped my business, Clear Vision Media, took out a loan to get some video gear. I had a side project with my friend Jeff Moores called Think International, which was actually a major piece of me learning a lot of YouTube skills. And then I started Think Media. And if you've ever wondered, like, why Think Media? Well, I don't know where we came up with the name Think International. Think Media was at first just the media side over on that channel with Jeff. It was just kind of like a passion. It was actually a nonprofit that we started, and it never really made money. Now, it was a nonprofit, but it didn't even make money for a nonprofit to run the bills. But we learned so much. And what it actually was an interview show with.
I love my natural hair, but not what hoodies were doing to it. So I made my own. Chasing Philly helps my business grow, one hoodie at a time.
Get financial guidance from bankers in your community and convenient digital tools all in one place. Chase for business. Make more of what's yours.
Can't decide.